Martha stood by the window, staring blankly at the world outside, her heart heavy with the weight of John's absence. The silence in the house was deafening, each corner echoing memories of their life together. Every morning, she half expected to hear his laughter, to feel his warm embrace, but all that greeted her was the cold, unfeeling emptiness. Grief had settled in like an unwelcome guest, making itself at home in her heart. As days turned into weeks, Martha struggled to find a new rhythm to her life. John's chair at the dining table remained untouched, a poignant reminder of the man who had been her anchor. She found herself talking to him, as if he were still there, sharing her thoughts and sorrows. Her grief was a constant companion, gnawing at her resolve, making each day a challenge to face. The world seemed to move on, indifferent to her pain. Martha's relationship with her Nura, Lisa, had always been strained, a fragile truce held together by John's presence. Now, with John gone, the tension between them became more palpable. Lisa's visits, once a source of mild discomfort, now felt like a confrontation. Martha couldn't help but feel that Lisa's eyes held a mixture of pity and impatience, as if waiting for Martha to make a move. Their conversations were clipped, filled with awkward pauses and unspoken words. One evening, Martha sat in her living room, clutching a photo of John and their son, taken many years ago. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I miss you so much, John." The house, once filled with laughter and love, now felt like a mausoleum. She couldn't shake the feeling that Lisa was waiting for her to leave, to fade away like a ghost. It was a thought that gnawed at her, adding to her already heavy burden. The day of the funeral was a blur of faces and condolences, each one a reminder of the life that had slipped through her fingers. Martha had barely been able to hold herself together, her grief threatening to overwhelm her at every moment. Lisa had been there, of course, her presence a constant reminder of the distance between them. As the last of the mourners left, Martha felt an overwhelming sense of loneliness, a void that no amount of words could fill. In the days following the funeral, Martha tried to find solace in the routines of daily life. She cooked meals she couldn't eat, cleaned rooms that remained unused, and walked through the empty house like a shadow of her former self. The pain of losing John was a constant ache, a wound that refused to heal. She found herself drawn to his study, the room still filled with his scent, his books, and his unfinished projects. Lisa's behavior grew increasingly perplexing to Martha. There was an edge to her tone, a coldness that hadn't been there before. Martha couldn't understand it. Was it grief manifesting in a different way, or something more? She tried to bridge the gap, to reach out and connect, but Lisa remained distant, almost hostile. It was as if the loss of John had stripped away the thin veneer of civility that had kept their relationship intact. One afternoon, as Martha was watering the plants John had so lovingly tended, Lisa appeared at the door. There was a look in her eyes that Martha couldn't quite decipher. "We need to talk," Lisa said, her voice devoid of warmth. Martha's heart skipped a beat, a sense of foreboding washing over her. She nodded, setting down the watering can, and followed Lisa into the living room. What could Lisa possibly want to discuss now, she wondered. Seated across from each other, the silence between them was thick with unspoken tension. Martha felt a knot form in her stomach as Lisa took a deep breath. "Martha, it's time we discussed the future," she began. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Martha's mind raced, trying to grasp what Lisa was getting at. She had a sinking feeling that whatever was coming next would change everything. Lisa's expression hardened as she continued. "You can't stay here forever," she said bluntly. Martha felt as if the ground had been pulled from under her feet. The words hit her like a physical blow, leaving her breathless. She stared at Lisa, disbelief and hurt written all over her face. How could Lisa be so cruel, so callous in the wake of John's death? The apartment was her home, the only place where she felt close to John. The conversation took a darker turn as Lisa outlined her intentions. She wanted the apartment, claiming it was rightfully hers now that John was gone. Martha listened in stunned silence, her world crumbling around her. Lisa's voice was firm, unyielding, leaving no room for negotiation. The betrayal cut deep, adding to the already overwhelming grief. Martha felt lost, adrift in a sea of emotions she could barely comprehend. When Lisa finally left, Martha collapsed into John's chair, her body shaking with sobs. She had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. The betrayal was almost too much to bear, a dagger to her already wounded heart. She clutched John's photograph to her chest, seeking comfort in the familiar face. How had it come to this? How had the woman John loved and trusted turned into a stranger, an enemy? Martha's thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and pain. She couldn't understand Lisa's sudden hostility, her ruthless desire to take the apartment. Was it greed, resentment, or something else entirely? She replayed their conversations over and over in her mind, looking for clues, for answers. But all she found was a deepening sense of despair. She was alone, more alone than she had ever been in her life. As the days passed, Martha tried to make sense of her situation. She reached out to friends and family, seeking advice, but found little solace. Everyone had their own problems, their own lives to worry about. She was left to navigate this new reality on her own, with only her memories of John to guide her. The apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a battleground, a place of conflict and sorrow. Martha knew she had to make a decision. She couldn't stay in the apartment under these circumstances, couldn't live in a place where she was no longer welcome. But the thought of leaving, of saying goodbye to the last remnants of her life with John, was unbearable. She needed to find a way to honor his memory, to hold on to the love they had shared, even as she faced an uncertain future. And so, Martha began to pack her things, each item a painful reminder of the life she was leaving behind. She moved through the apartment like a ghost, her heart heavy with grief and regret. As she packed away John's belongings, she whispered promises to him, vows to keep his memory alive no matter where she went. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she had to be strong, for John's sake and for her own. Martha sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a cup of tea. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and she could sense that Lisa was about to say something significant. Finally, Lisa broke the silence, her voice cold and resolute. "You need to leave, Martha," she said, each word slicing through the air like a knife. Martha's heart sank as she tried to comprehend what she was hearing. Lisa's eyes were devoid of any warmth or empathy as she continued, "This apartment belongs to me now. It's time for you to find another place to live." The harshness of Lisa's words took Martha by surprise, leaving her speechless. She had always known their relationship was strained, but she never imagined it would come to this. The apartment had been her sanctuary, a place filled with memories of John, and now it was being taken away. Martha felt a lump form in her throat as she struggled to hold back tears. "But where will I go?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lisa's response was curt and unforgiving. "That's not my problem," she replied, her tone icy. "You have until the end of the month to move out." The finality of Lisa's words hit Martha like a tidal wave, leaving her feeling helpless and abandoned. The days following Lisa's ultimatum were a blur of confusion and sorrow for Martha. She wandered through the apartment, touching the familiar objects that held so many memories of her life with John. Each item seemed to whisper stories of their love, their shared laughter, and the dreams they had built together. The thought of leaving it all behind was almost too much to bear. Martha tried to reason with Lisa, hoping to find some common ground, but her efforts were met with indifference. Lisa's mind was made up, and there was no changing it. "I've already made arrangements," Lisa said one afternoon, her voice devoid of any emotion. "I'll be moving in as soon as you're out." The words felt like a final blow, shattering any remaining hope Martha had of staying. Feeling cornered and desperate, Martha sought legal advice, but the process was daunting and filled with uncertainties. She didn't have the strength or resources to fight a prolonged legal battle. Her grief over John's death had left her vulnerable, and now she faced the prospect of losing her home as well. The sense of betrayal she felt towards Lisa was overwhelming, adding to her emotional turmoil. The apartment, once a haven of comfort, now felt like a hostile environment. Martha's days were filled with packing boxes and making calls to potential new residences. Each task was a painful reminder of the life she was being forced to leave behind. The future seemed bleak and uncertain, a stark contrast to the warm and loving home she had shared with John. As the deadline approached, Martha's anxiety grew. She couldn't sleep, her mind racing with thoughts of where she would go and how she would survive. The betrayal by Lisa gnawed at her constantly, turning what little sleep she managed to get into restless nightmares. The walls of the apartment, which had once provided solace, now seemed to close in on her, amplifying her sense of isolation. One evening, as Martha sat surrounded by packed boxes, she allowed herself to cry openly. The tears were a release, a way to cope with the overwhelming sense of loss and betrayal. She clung to a photograph of John, seeking comfort in his familiar smile. "I don't know what to do without you," she whispered to the empty room. The silence was her only response, deepening her sense of loneliness. Lisa's visits became more frequent and more intrusive as the move-out date approached. She would walk through the apartment, making notes and commenting on what needed to be changed. Martha felt like an unwelcome guest in her own home, her presence tolerated only until she could be replaced. Each visit from Lisa was a reminder of the impending change, making it harder for Martha to find any peace. Martha began to spend more time outside, wandering the streets and visiting places she and John had loved. She found solace in these familiar haunts, even as she felt the weight of her impending displacement. The city was full of memories, each one a bittersweet reminder of the life she was leaving behind. It was a way to hold on to John, even as everything else seemed to slip away. As the final days in the apartment approached, Martha tried to focus on the practicalities. She made lists, packed boxes, and arranged for movers, all while her heart ached with sorrow. She reached out to friends and family, hoping to find a place to stay, but options were limited. The kindness of others was a small comfort, but it couldn't replace the home she was losing. On the day she was to leave, Martha took one last walk through the apartment. She touched the walls, the furniture, the photographs, saying goodbye to the life she had known. The memories flooded back, each one a poignant reminder of the love and happiness she had shared with John. It was a painful but necessary farewell, a way to honor what had been and prepare for what was to come. As Martha closed the door to the apartment for the final time, she felt a mixture of sadness and resolve. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she had to keep moving forward. The betrayal by Lisa had been a harsh lesson, but it had also shown her the strength she possessed. She would find a new place, a new beginning, and somehow, she would carry John's memory with her. Martha wandered through the city streets, her heart heavy with despair. Each step felt like a struggle as she grappled with the reality of her situation. The betrayal by Lisa had cut deep, leaving her feeling adrift and alone. She had nowhere to go, no place to call home. The future, once filled with the warmth of John's love, now seemed cold and uncertain. As the days passed, Martha's desperation grew. She found herself staring at the phone, willing it to ring with good news. Friends and family had offered their condolences, but little else. Everyone had their own lives, their own problems to deal with. Martha felt like a burden, a relic of a past that no one wanted to remember. Her calls for help were met with sympathetic but distant responses. One evening, Martha sat on a park bench, watching the sunset. The vibrant colors in the sky seemed to mock her sorrow. She clutched her purse tightly, feeling the weight of her worries pressing down on her. The city, once a place of joy and discovery, now felt like a labyrinth of despair. She longed for the comfort of John's arms, for the familiar scent of their home. But those days were gone. Martha's nights were sleepless and filled with anxiety. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The apartment had been her anchor, a place of safety and love. Without it, she felt lost. Her grief for John, compounded by Lisa's betrayal, was a constant ache in her chest. Each morning, she woke with a sense of dread, knowing she had to face another day without him. Her situation grew more dire as the deadline to leave the apartment loomed closer. Martha spent her days packing her belongings, each item a painful reminder of the life she was leaving behind. The process was slow and agonizing, filled with tears and memories. She tried to stay focused, to keep moving forward, but the weight of her grief and fear was overwhelming. It felt as if she was packing away not just her possessions, but pieces of her heart. Martha's financial situation added to her desperation. With John's death, her income had dwindled, and the cost of finding a new place seemed insurmountable. She spent hours poring over classified ads, making calls, and visiting potential apartments. Each rejection, each unsuitable option, chipped away at her resolve. The reality of her precarious situation became clearer with each passing day. She couldn't afford to stay, but she also couldn't find a place to go. One day, while sorting through John's papers, Martha found a letter he had written to her years ago. His words were a balm to her aching soul, a reminder of the love they had shared. "No matter what happens, know that I am always with you," he had written. The letter brought a fresh wave of tears, but also a renewed sense of determination. She had to keep going, for John's sake and for her own. Martha began to reach out to community resources, hoping to find some assistance. She visited shelters, spoke with social workers, and filled out countless forms. The process was exhausting, but she refused to give up. She knew she had to find a solution, a way to survive this nightmare. Each small victory, each step forward, gave her a glimmer of hope. She clung to that hope, even as the world around her seemed to crumble. As the final days in the apartment approached, Martha felt a mix of emotions. The grief and loss were still there, but so was a growing sense of resolve. She packed the last of her boxes, taking one final walk through the empty rooms. The memories of her life with John filled her with both sorrow and strength. She whispered a goodbye to each room, promising to carry the love they had shared with her into whatever came next. On the day of the move, Martha stood outside the apartment building, watching as the movers loaded the last of her belongings into the truck. Lisa stood nearby, her expression unreadable. Martha felt a surge of anger and sadness, but also a strange sense of relief. The confrontation was over. The next chapter of her life was about to begin, whether she was ready or not. The drive to her new temporary accommodation was filled with a mix of trepidation and relief. Martha stared out the window, watching the city pass by, trying to muster the strength to face her new reality. The journey felt like a metaphor for her life, moving forward, leaving behind the familiar, and venturing into the unknown. She held on to John's letter, finding solace in his words as she faced the future alone. Martha's new place was a small room in a boarding house, a far cry from the apartment she had shared with John. But it was a roof over her head, a place to rest and regroup. She unpacked her belongings, trying to make the space feel like home. It was a daunting task, but she took it one step at a time, determined to find a way to rebuild her life. The room was modest, but it was hers, and she would make the best of it. In the quiet of her new room, Martha found moments of peace. She began to establish a new routine, finding comfort in the small things. She wrote in her journal, capturing her thoughts and feelings, and took walks in the nearby park, finding solace in nature. Each day was a challenge, but also an opportunity to heal. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but she knew she had the strength to keep moving forward. Martha sat in the lawyer's office, her nerves frayed and her heart heavy with anxiety. She had been summoned for the reading of John's will, an event she both dreaded and anticipated. The room was filled with John's family and friends, their faces a mixture of curiosity and sadness. As the lawyer began to speak, Martha felt a sense of foreboding, unsure of what revelations the document might hold. The lawyer's voice was calm and steady as he read through the formalities, but Martha's mind was elsewhere. She glanced at Lisa, who was sitting across from her, her expression unreadable. Martha couldn't help but wonder what Lisa was thinking. Had she known about the contents of the will? Was there more betrayal waiting to be uncovered? The air was thick with tension, each word from the lawyer adding to the suspense. As the lawyer continued, Martha's attention snapped back to his words. "John has left specific instructions for the distribution of his assets," he said, his tone solemn. Martha held her breath, waiting for the next part. The lawyer unfolded a document and began to read John's wishes. Martha's heart pounded in her chest, each word feeling like a step closer to a revelation she wasn't sure she was ready for. John had left the bulk of his estate to Martha, including the apartment. The room erupted in murmurs, and Martha's eyes widened in shock. She hadn't expected this. The apartment, which Lisa had so callously claimed, was now legally hers. The relief was overwhelming, but it was mixed with a sense of disbelief. She glanced at Lisa, whose face had turned pale with surprise and anger. The tension between them crackled like static electricity. The lawyer continued, outlining other bequests and gifts to friends and family. Martha's mind raced as she tried to process the information. John had been meticulous in his planning, ensuring that Martha was taken care of. It was a gesture of love and protection, even from beyond the grave. Martha felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. John had thought of everything, and she was overwhelmed by the depth of his care. But the will held more surprises. The lawyer paused, then read a section that revealed a secret about John's past. Martha listened in stunned silence as the lawyer detailed a part of John's life she had never known. He had been involved in a business venture that had provided significant financial security, but he had kept it hidden, wanting to shield Martha from the stress and uncertainty. It was a revelation that changed her understanding of the man she had loved. The secret also involved Lisa. John had known about Lisa's intentions regarding the apartment and had taken steps to protect Martha. He had included a clause that explicitly barred Lisa from contesting the will or claiming any part of the property. The room fell silent as the weight of John's foresight became apparent. Martha felt a wave of relief, but also a deep sadness. John had been fighting battles she hadn't known about, all to protect her. Lisa's reaction was a mix of shock and fury. She stood up abruptly, her face flushed with anger. "This isn't fair," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "I deserve that apartment." The lawyer calmly reminded her of the terms of the will, but Lisa was inconsolable. Martha watched, feeling a mix of vindication and pity. Lisa's true colors were showing, and it was clear that John's decision had been the right one. As the reading concluded, Martha felt a sense of closure. John's will had not only secured her future, but had also revealed the depths of his love and care. The secrets he had kept were painful to learn, but they also showed the lengths he had gone to protect her. She felt a renewed sense of strength and determination. John had given her a second chance, and she was determined to honor his memory by making the most of it. Martha left the lawyer's office with a heavy heart, but also a sense of relief. The weight of uncertainty had lifted, replaced by a clear path forward. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew she had the resources and support to face them. John's final gift had given her the security she needed to rebuild her life, and for that, she was profoundly grateful. That evening, Martha sat in her new room, reflecting on the day's events. The revelations from the will had been overwhelming, but they had also given her a sense of peace. She felt closer to John, knowing the lengths he had gone to protect her. The apartment was now a symbol of his love, a place she could return to and feel safe. The future was still uncertain, but Martha felt ready to face it, knowing John was with her in spirit. As she prepared for bed, Martha whispered a silent thank you to John. His love and foresight had given her the strength to move forward. She knew there would be difficult days ahead, but she also knew she had the resilience to overcome them. The will had been a turning point, a moment of clarity and revelation that had changed everything. Martha felt a renewed sense of purpose, determined to honor John's memory by living her life to the fullest. Martha sat in her small room, the weight of the day's revelations still heavy on her shoulders. She could hardly believe that John had left the apartment to her. The legalities were clear, and the lawyer had assured her that the will was ironclad. For the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. But alongside that hope was a deep sense of sadness for the pain it was causing Lisa. Lisa, on the other hand, was reeling from the shock. She had been so certain of her claim to the apartment, and the sudden turn of events left her furious and confused. The revelation that John had protected Martha so thoroughly felt like a personal betrayal. She paced her own home, her mind racing with anger and disbelief. How could John have done this? How could he leave her with nothing? Martha's thoughts were conflicted as she reflected on the reading of the will. She felt immense gratitude towards John for securing her future, yet she couldn't ignore the pain it had caused Lisa. Their relationship had always been strained, but this betrayal felt like a final blow. Martha wished things could have been different, that they could have found common ground. But the reality was stark and unchangeable. Lisa's reaction to the will had been intense. Her outburst at the lawyer's office was just the beginning. She had stormed out, leaving a trail of angry words and tears. Martha had watched, feeling both vindicated and deeply saddened. She didn't want this conflict, especially not in the wake of John's death. But the terms of the will were clear, and there was no room for negotiation. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and paperwork. Martha worked closely with the lawyer to ensure everything was in order. Each step brought her closer to reclaiming the apartment, but it also deepened the rift with Lisa. Friends and family were drawn into the drama, taking sides and offering opinions. It felt like John's death had unleashed a storm that was tearing everyone apart. Martha tried to reach out to Lisa, hoping to find a way to mend their relationship. She sent messages, called, and even visited Lisa's home, but all her efforts were met with silence or hostility. Lisa's anger was a palpable force, driving a wedge deeper between them. Martha felt helpless, unable to bridge the gap that had widened so drastically. The apartment, once a symbol of John's love, now felt like a battleground. Despite the tension, Martha found solace in the fact that she had a secure place to live. She began making plans to move back into the apartment, each decision tinged with bittersweet emotions. She imagined restoring the space, filling it with warmth and love again. But the shadow of the conflict with Lisa loomed large, casting a pall over her dreams. She wanted to honor John's memory, but it was hard to see a way forward without causing more pain. Lisa, meanwhile, struggled with her feelings of betrayal and loss. The apartment had represented her last connection to her father, and losing it felt like losing him all over again. Her anger towards Martha was fueled by a sense of injustice and hurt. She couldn't understand why John had made the choices he did, and it left her feeling abandoned and alone. The will had changed everything, turning her world upside down. As the move-in date approached, Martha tried to focus on the positive. She thought about the new beginning the apartment would offer her, a chance to rebuild her life. She started gathering her belongings, packing up the small room that had been her refuge. Each box filled was a step closer to reclaiming her home, but it also brought a pang of sorrow for the unresolved conflict with Lisa. She wished they could find a way to heal. Martha spent hours in the apartment, cleaning and preparing it for her return. The familiar smells and sights brought back a flood of memories. She could almost hear John's laughter, feel his presence in the rooms. It was a comfort, but also a reminder of what had been lost. She wanted to create a space that honored their life together, but the weight of the recent conflicts made it hard to find joy in the process. As Martha settled back into the apartment, she began to notice small things John had left behind. Letters, photographs, and personal items that spoke to his love and thoughtfulness. Each discovery was like a message from beyond, reminding her of the deep bond they had shared. It gave her strength, a sense of purpose in moving forward. She was determined to create a home that reflected their love and memories. But even as she embraced her new beginning, Martha couldn't escape the sadness of her fractured relationship with Lisa. She hoped that time would heal the wounds, that they could find a way to come together. John had always wanted them to get along, and she felt a duty to try and honor that wish. The apartment was more than just a place to live. It was a symbol of their family, of the love and challenges they had faced together. In quiet moments, Martha reflected on the lessons she had learned through this ordeal. She had discovered a strength she didn't know she possessed, a resilience born out of love and loss. She realized that life would continue to bring challenges, but she was ready to face them. With John's memory as her guide, she felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. The future was uncertain, but she was no longer afraid. Martha sat in her newly reclaimed apartment, the air still thick with the scent of fresh paint and cleaning supplies. She was sifting through old documents, trying to find a sense of closure in the remnants of John's life. Among the papers, she discovered an envelope marked, "To be opened in case of my death." Her hands trembled as she carefully opened it, revealing a letter in John's familiar handwriting. The letter began with John's affectionate words, a reminder of the deep love they had shared. But as Martha read further, she uncovered a startling revelation. John had harbored a secret about his past, a secret that he had kept from both her and Lisa. The letter detailed an old relationship and a child that had been born out of wedlock, someone John had lost contact with many years ago. Martha's heart raced as she absorbed the information. This revelation cast John's life in a new light. Martha's mind was flooded with questions. Why had he kept this from her? What had happened to the child? The shock of the discovery left her reeling. She felt a mix of emotions, betrayal, sadness, and an unexpected sense of empathy. John must have carried this burden alone, and now it was left to her to piece together the fragments of his hidden past. Martha knew she had to confront Lisa with this information, as painful as it would be. She called and asked her to come over, hoping they could finally have an honest conversation. When Lisa arrived, the tension between them was palpable. Martha handed her the letter without a word, watching as Lisa's eyes scanned the pages. The color drained from Lisa's face as she read, her expression shifting from anger to confusion and finally to sorrow. For a moment, they sat in silence, the weight of John's secret hanging between them. Lisa was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't he tell us?" she asked, tears welling in her eyes. Martha could only shake her head, her own emotions too raw to form a coherent response. The revelation had shattered their perceptions of John, leaving them both grappling with a new reality. As the initial shock wore off, Martha and Lisa began to talk more openly than they had in years. They shared their memories of John, their thoughts on his secret, and their mutual grief. For the first time, they were united in their confusion and pain. The letter had opened a door to a deeper understanding of each other, bridging the gap that had always existed between them. Martha realized that John had likely kept his secret to protect them, fearing the consequences of such a revelation. It was a painful truth, but it also highlighted his love and desire to shield his family from hurt. Lisa, too, began to see her father in a new light. The anger she had harbored began to dissolve, replaced by a profound sense of loss for the man she thought she knew. The conversation turned to practical matters. They decided to search for any additional information about John's past, hoping to find closure and perhaps connect with the child he had mentioned. It was a daunting task, but one they felt compelled to undertake together. The shared goal gave them a sense of purpose, a way to honor John's memory by uncovering the truth he had hidden. As they delved deeper into John's past, Martha and Lisa uncovered more pieces of the puzzle. Old photographs, letters, and legal documents painted a picture of a complicated life. They discovered that John had tried to reconnect with his child, but had been unsuccessful. This revelation brought a mix of relief and sorrow, knowing he had tried but had been thwarted by circumstances beyond his control. The process of uncovering John's secret allowed Martha and Lisa to heal their fractured relationship. They found common ground in their shared history, their mutual grief, and their desire to honor John's memory. The apartment, once a battleground, became a place of reconciliation. They began to see each other not as adversaries, but as family bound by love and loss. Martha and Lisa's journey to uncover John's past took them to unexpected places. They met people who had known John in his younger years, each encounter shedding new light on the man they loved. These interactions helped them understand the choices he had made, the burdens he had carried, and the depth of his love for them. It was a journey of discovery, both about John and about themselves. As they pieced together John's story, Martha and Lisa found a sense of closure. They could finally put to rest the questions and doubts that had haunted them since his death. The secret, once a source of pain, became a catalyst for healing. They forgave John for his silence, understanding that his actions had been driven by love and a desire to protect them. This realization brought them closer together, forging a bond that was stronger than before. Martha and Lisa decided to reach out to the child John had mentioned in his letter. It was a difficult decision, filled with uncertainty and hope. They wanted to offer a connection, a chance to build a relationship that had been denied for so long. The response was tentative but positive, opening a new chapter in their lives. It was a step towards healing and rebuilding, honoring John's legacy by embracing the family he had hidden. In the end, Martha and Lisa's journey of discovery transformed their relationship. They found strength in each other, learning to navigate their grief and the complexities of their past. The apartment, once a symbol of conflict, became a place of unity and renewal. They filled it with new memories, honoring John's spirit and the love he had left behind. The future was still uncertain, but they faced it together, stronger and more connected than ever. Martha and Lisa's relationship had started to mend in the aftermath of John's secret. They spent more time together, not just out of necessity, but out of a genuine desire to understand each other better. Their conversations became more heartfelt, filled with shared memories and mutual respect. Martha saw a side of Lisa she had never noticed before, compassionate, determined, and capable of deep love. It was a revelation that warmed her heart. Lisa, too, felt the change. Her initial anger had faded, replaced by a profound sense of remorse for how she had treated Martha. She saw now how much Martha had loved her father and how deeply she had been hurt by his passing and the subsequent conflicts. Lisa wanted to make amends, to rebuild their relationship on a foundation of honesty and kindness. She began to reach out more, offering help and companionship. One sunny afternoon, Lisa suggested they go through John's belongings together. It was a daunting task, but Martha agreed, seeing it as a step towards healing. They spent hours sorting through his things, sharing stories and memories. Each item they uncovered was a piece of their shared history, a reminder of the man who had connected them. The process was cathartic, allowing them to grieve together and support each other. As they worked, Lisa found a box of old letters that John had written to Martha over the years. The letters were filled with love, dreams, and promises. Reading them, Lisa gained a deeper understanding of the bond her father and Martha had shared. She realized that Martha had been more than just a stepmother. She had been a vital part of John's life and, by extension, hers. It was a humbling and enlightening experience. Martha, in turn, discovered letters that John had written to Lisa when she was a child. The letters spoke of his hopes and dreams for her, his pride in her achievements, and his unwavering love. Sharing these letters brought them closer, as they realized how much John had cherished both of them. It was a bittersweet moment, filled with tears and laughter, but it helped to bridge the gap that had existed between them. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Lisa took a deep breath and apologized to Martha. "I'm so sorry for everything," she said, her voice trembling. "I was angry and hurt, and I took it out on you. I hope you can forgive me." Martha reached out and took Lisa's hand, her eyes filled with tears. "Of course, I forgive you," she replied softly. "We were both grieving in our own ways. Let's move forward together." Their reconciliation wasn't instant, but it was sincere. They made a conscious effort to spend time together, to support each other, and to communicate openly. They attended grief counseling sessions, finding comfort in sharing their experiences and learning how to cope with their loss. The process was challenging, but it brought them closer and helped them heal. They began to see each other as allies rather than adversaries. Martha suggested they start a project in John's memory, something that would honor his legacy and keep his spirit alive. Lisa loved the idea and proposed creating a community garden, a place where people could come together, share stories, and find solace. John had always loved gardening, and it seemed like the perfect tribute. They threw themselves into the project, working side by side to bring their vision to life. The community garden became a labor of love. Martha and Lisa planted flowers, vegetables, and trees, each one a symbol of growth and renewal. They invited friends, family, and neighbors to join them, creating a space that was vibrant and full of life. The garden became a sanctuary, a place where they could remember John, celebrate his life, and find peace. It was a tangible representation of their reconciliation and a testament to the healing power of love. As the garden flourished, so did Martha and Lisa's relationship. They learned to trust each other, to lean on each other in times of need. They shared meals, took long walks, and spent evenings talking late into the night. The apartment, once a source of conflict, became a home filled with laughter and warmth. They created new memories together, each one a step towards a brighter future. Lisa's remorse turned into a deep appreciation for Martha. She saw the strength and resilience that Martha had shown in the face of adversity, and it inspired her. Lisa realized that Martha had been a constant source of support and love, even when she didn't deserve it. This realization deepened her respect and admiration for her stepmother, and she made a promise to herself to be a better daughter-in-law and friend. Martha, too, felt a renewed sense of purpose. The garden project had given her a reason to get up each day, a way to channel her grief into something positive. She found joy in the simple act of tending to the plants, in watching them grow and flourish. It was a reminder that life goes on, that beauty can be found even in the midst of sorrow. She felt a deep sense of connection to John, knowing that he would have loved the garden and the reconciliation it had fostered. Their journey towards reconciliation was not without its challenges. There were still moments of tension and disagreement, times when old wounds resurfaced, but they faced these challenges together with patience and understanding. They had learned that healing takes time, that it requires effort and commitment, and they were willing to put in the work, knowing that the reward was a relationship built on love and mutual respect. In the end, Martha and Lisa found a new beginning in the midst of their grief. They transformed their pain into something beautiful, something that honored John's memory and brought them closer together. The community garden stood as a symbol of their journey, a place where they could celebrate the past and look forward to the future. They knew that there would still be difficult days ahead, but they also knew that they had each other, and that made all the difference. Martha and Lisa stood together in the community garden, admiring the vibrant blooms and lush greenery that had become a testament to their journey of reconciliation. The garden had transformed not just the space, but also their hearts, filling their lives with new purpose and joy. The past few months had been a whirlwind of emotions, but they had emerged stronger and closer than ever, ready to embrace the future together. The apartment, once a battleground of conflict and grief, had become a symbol of unity and renewal. Martha and Lisa worked side by side to redecorate and breathe new life into the space. They painted walls, hung new pictures, and rearranged furniture, each change reflecting their combined tastes and the bond they had forged. The laughter and shared moments during these activities brought a sense of healing, turning the apartment into a true home once again. One sunny morning, Martha woke up feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. She walked into the living room, now filled with fresh flowers from the garden, and found Lisa preparing breakfast. The aroma of coffee and freshly baked bread filled the air, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. They sat down together, sharing stories and planning their day, the ease and comfort between them a testament to their newfound relationship. Lisa had decided to take a break from her demanding job to focus on the garden and her relationship with Martha. She realized that life was too short to be consumed by work and stress, and she wanted to prioritize what truly mattered. The garden had become a sanctuary not just for them, but for the entire community. People from all walks of life came to enjoy the tranquility and beauty, and it brought Lisa immense satisfaction to see the positive impact they were making. Martha, too, found a renewed sense of purpose in the garden. She started organizing workshops on gardening and sustainability, sharing her knowledge and passion with others. The interactions with the community brought her joy and a sense of belonging. She felt John's presence in every plant she nurtured, every flower that bloomed, and it gave her the strength to move forward. The garden was a living tribute to his memory, a place where his spirit thrived. The bond between Martha and Lisa grew stronger with each passing day. They learned to navigate their differences with patience and understanding, knowing that their relationship was worth the effort. They celebrated small victories together, from the first buds of spring to the successful completion of a community event. Each milestone was a reminder of how far they had come and the beautiful future that lay ahead. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lisa turned to Martha and said, "Thank you for giving us a second chance." Martha smiled, her eyes reflecting the golden hues of the sky. "We both deserved it," she replied softly. They sat in comfortable silence, the bond between them palpable. It was a moment of contentment, a testament to the power of love and forgiveness. Martha began to explore new hobbies and interests, encouraged by Lisa's support. She joined a local book club, took up painting, and even started learning how to play the piano. Each new activity brought a sense of excitement and fulfillment, adding layers to her already rich life. Lisa joined her in some of these endeavors, and they often laughed at their attempts and celebrated their progress, enjoying the simple pleasures of life. As the seasons changed, so did their lives. The garden flourished, becoming a beloved part of the community. Martha and Lisa hosted gatherings, from barbecues to holiday celebrations, filling the apartment with friends, family, and laughter. The walls that had once echoed with silence and tension now vibrated with joy and warmth. The apartment had truly become a place of healing and love. The journey they had embarked on together was not without its challenges, but it was also filled with moments of profound beauty and connection. They had learned to cherish each other and the life they were building. The pain and grief of the past had given way to hope and renewal, and they embraced each day with gratitude and optimism. The future was bright, and they were ready to face it together. One afternoon, as Martha and Lisa worked in the garden, a young girl from the neighborhood approached them. She shyly handed Martha a small potted plant, a gift from her family. "Thank you for making this place so beautiful," she said, her eyes shining with admiration. Martha's heart swelled with emotion, and she hugged the girl warmly. "Thank you for being a part of it," she replied. It was moments like these that made everything worthwhile. The apartment and garden had become symbols of their journey, a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and second chances. Martha and Lisa had found a way to heal and rebuild, creating a space where they could honor John's memory and celebrate their bond. The future was full of promise, and they were ready to embrace it together, hand in hand. The pain of the past had transformed into a source of strength, guiding them towards a brighter tomorrow. As they looked out over the garden, Martha and Lisa knew that they had found something precious, each other. The love and connection they had discovered were the true gifts John had left behind. With hearts full of gratitude and hope, they stepped into the future, ready to create new memories and cherish the moments that lay ahead. Together, they had found their way through the darkness, emerging stronger and more united than ever. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey with Martha and Lisa. Their story of loss, betrayal, and ultimately reconciliation shows us that even in the darkest times, there is hope for healing and renewal. Just like Martha and Lisa found strength in each other, we too can find strength in our relationships and the love we share. But the emotional roller coaster doesn't end here. Up next, we have a story that will tug at your heartstrings even more. What the little girl said to the nurse before she died. It left her stunned and unable to hold back the tears. You won't want to miss this touching tale that explores the depths of human kindness and the unexpected moments that change our lives forever. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that moves and inspires you. Also, check out the pinned comment for a link to buy me a coffee if you'd like to support us in bringing you more heartfelt stories every day.